Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. Welcome to another episode of Pastor's Patio. My, how a week can change the weather, right? But most of you who are watching this live on the Oregon coast and know that to be the case. And it is windy today. It was raining overnight pretty good. And so I apologize for any wind that might pick up on the microphone. I do have it kind of tucked in the corner of my patio a little bit just to kind of protect some of that potential. And this couldn't be any more different than last night. Last night, Christy and I were out here after Rosie was put to bed, and now that it's kind of getting a little nicer, generally speaking, besides today, I pulled out the little fire bowl and have started having a couple fires here on the patio in the evening times. So last night we were out here enjoying just the evening. It was a beautiful evening. And in fact, as I was building the fire, elk were coming up from the green space over that direction and into the lots next to our house and staring at us over the fence. And it was really cool. And it's been a while since I've had a fire out in the backyard. So I've really enjoyed that opportunity. And of course, it's been wonderful with Christy, as her and I have been able to enjoy each other's company without really like the distraction of TV shows or things of that nature. And so we've had some good conversations, and I've really thoroughly enjoyed that as well. But last night it was a little windier, like the wind started last night, and it was a little colder. So Christy went in before I did. I wanted to wait for the fire to die down a little bit. And as I was sitting there staring at the fire, I just thought of all the things that fire does. It's really an incredible thing that we have in fire. It can be incredibly scary, incredibly dangerous. As many of you know, during the Christmas season, we had a family in our community that lost their house to a fire and everything. And so many of you were so generous, and we were able to help them out with a large contribution financially, and so many people in the community helped with a variety of means, donating goods and money to that family. And so it was really cool to watch our community rally around this couple, a couple that doesn't even come to our church, and that's what we're here for. We're here to be a blessing the best we can and when we can. So anywho, all that to say, fire can be really destructive. Wildfires seem to constantly be an issue, most of which are set by people and then take off like crazy. And it's scary, very scary. In fact, Corey and I have a friend down in California whose city and church and the homes and livelihoods of several people in that community were really affected by some of the fires in California. It can be very destructive, very destructive. Also very beneficial. Can you imagine the first time, fire came on the scene and, people had that in their hand and what they could do with it? Think about at night, just how fire lights up a space. That fire goes into the darkness and lights up the darkness. And it's pretty incredible because every time light goes in and penetrates the darkness, it just feels like victory. You know what I mean? Maybe that's me overthinking it. I don't know. Provides warmth. Like I said last night, it was cold, and we have this little fire bowl that's on these legs, and so of course, I was wearing my flip-flops like an idiot, and I stuck my feet kind of under the fire bowl, and they were all toasty and warm under there because of the fire. You get closer to the fire, you huddle up, you have fireplaces or stoves in your house to warm up the house, and there's some people who rely solely on wood fire heat, or there's gas fire. We have a gas fireplace here in our house. You can use it to cook. We have a gas stove in our house. I've seen people posting backyard camping or backyard fire pictures and videos during this whole quarantine thing, spending so much more time with their family, cooking s'mores and hot dogs over the fires in their backyards, Of course, I think more in the terms of like a rotisserie pig over a fire. That's way cooler. But you get into the Bible and you start thinking about the fire and the different ways fire comes into play. And there's some scary things and some good things. And especially in the Old Testament, there's a lot of conversation about fire. And, like God led the Israelites through the wilderness by a pillar of clouds in the day and a column of fire at night. You've got this idea that God is an all-consuming fire. Or times where the people would rebel against him and reject him and sin against him. And it talked about his anger burning like fire toward those who sinned against him or the enemies of Israel. It's pretty intense when you get into fire. And but there's also a cleansing or a refining fire that's brought up. And last night as I was sitting there and the fire was dying down and we got to more coals, that's kind of where my mind wandered, is in the refining. And I say that and I bring that up because I really hope and pray, last week I talked about hope and gratitude, but I also hope kind of a little bit in another direction that you're using this opportunity, if you're spending more time at home, that you're using this opportunity to ask the Holy Spirit to work on your heart. That you are asking the Holy Spirit to refine your heart through this trial. And that's what the Holy Spirit does, man. He goes into the deep places of our lives. He finds those things that need to be worked on. If he finds the impurities, he brings them to the surface so that they can be refined, so they can be made pure, so that we can be made more holy. And so my prayer is that you are taking the time to be intentional about that prayer. I don't think that there is a to-do list, a task list, a thing that you can accomplish in order to become refined by God or more pure, other than spending time in His Word and in prayer, asking Him to do the work, to refine you and to make you more pure. I think that would probably be one of the more redemptive things that could come out of this time. If you find yourself at home more than you're working and you're out of your regular routine and the busyness of your schedules, redeem this time by becoming more pure. I want to go back to the passage I shared last week in our episode of Pastor's Patio. And I just want to take a snippet out of it. It was from 1 Peter chapter 1. I'm going to go with verse 6 and through 7. It says this: "In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ." So there Peter brings up this whole idea of gold being refined by fire, and your faith being tested during trials, being refined like gold through fire. And I love that imagery. We have, in the past we've gotten into the show Gold Rush. And, I have a little bit of a personal connection to that show, mainly because my neighbors were related to the Hoffmans, and I don't know them otherwise, but that's about it. So I was curious to watch that show. And anyways, you'll see at times when they're harvesting the gold out of the ground, when they're mining it, it's small, fine gold, and it's got black bits in it and everything. Occasionally on one of the episodes, they'll take some of that fine gold and they'll take it into someone who will smelt it and turn it into a gold bar. And in that whole process, they pour that fine gold into a cup. It goes into a furnace. It's heated really hot with blazing hot fire until the impurities float up to the top and they can discard the impurities. And then you've got a pure gold bar. And it's really a fascinating process. And if you allow Him to do so, the Holy Spirit can act in such a way in your life when you're in the middle of the fire. When you're in the middle of the trial, when you're in the middle of the fire, God can redeem that time and bring out the impurities of your heart to cleanse you, to make you more pure, to make you more like Jesus. And so just join me in that simple prayer during this time. Just join me in asking that the Holy Spirit would make us to be more like Jesus during this trial. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on another episode of Pastor's Patio.